But the lesson to everybody is, if you're an entertainer, a musician, entertain.
Okay.
Go right down
So
the
if
middle
you're
of
an
the road.
entertainer,
Kevin, you're a host of Shark
free
Tank.
speech rights?
Wouldn't people say the same thing about you? You're a show of a host of an entertainment
Have you
show.
ever heard me shill for a politician?
Yeah, every night when you come.
Welcome back to World Insight Hub. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. So here's what went down. On last night's episode of CNN's Newsnight, Kevin O'Leary sat across from Ana Navarro, Abby Phillip, and Cornel West. And what unfolded was the kind of exchange that shows why people are losing patience with mainstream panels. Kevin O'Leary came in sharp, direct, and unshaken, while Ana Navarro twisted herself in knots trying to defend late-night host Jimmy Kimmel. For days now, CNN has been spinning this narrative that somehow Donald Trump is out there suppressing free speech. They tried to turn Kimmel's absence into a big story about censorship and intimidation. But with Kimmel already reinstated, the whole narrative is falling apart in real time. It looks less like a free speech battle and more like another case of CNN overhyping a story to keep viewers angry and tuned in. And here's the kicker. Instead of addressing that collapse head-on, CNN keeps doubling down, as if repeating the same talking points will suddenly make them true. But last night, Kevin O'Leary wasn't having any of it. He cut through the noise, laid out the facts, and made it clear that this entire controversy was built on shaky ground. Meanwhile, Navaro embarrassed herself defending a position that even many of CNN's own viewers aren't buying anymore. So let's roll the tape and watch Scott Jennings take apart one of the most predictable voices on that network, Ana Navarro. This is where things get interesting.
Backlash to the backlash to the backlash. I mean, I think at the end of the day, one of the big original sins of this whole saga is the Trump administration deciding to make it clear to the whole world that they wanted to be involved. I almost imagine if they had not done that, this would have ended completely differently. Kimmel and Disney would have dealt with this behind closed doors. Maybe he would have been suspended for a few days. They would have dealt with the affiliates and we would be moving on. But Disney was forced to respond to the assumption many people have, which is that this was an attempt of the government to chill speech, which I think, for a lot of Americans, they don't like that.
I've been doing television for a lot of years. The only thing that matters long-term, ratings. Tomorrow night, who's ever writing that monologue for him, he's going to get his best score in decades.
Probably.
Everybody in America is going to be tuning in. They're going to score huge ratings, and that's what matters on TV. Secondly, to consider, I go back to an interview with Johnny Carson, I think it was in the early 80s, when he said, I don't get into politics because why would I want to piss off 50% of my audience? And I think all comedians should think about that. They're entertainers, and they want to entertain people who had a long day. They want to be lifted up, hear something funny. They don't want to be dragged down in the toilet of politics. Michael Jordan said, I want to sell sneakers to Republicans too. I mean, what is this stuff? Entertainers entertain. Why get into this whole thing of partisan politics? I think that's the lesson of this Kimmel thing. I think he'll do very well tomorrow night. Long term, ratings will matter for him, like everybody else. But the lesson to everybody is, if you're an entertainer, a musician, entertain.
Okay.
Go right down
So
the
if
middle
you're
of
an
the road.
entertainer,
Kevin, you're a host of Shark
free
Tank.
speech rights?
Wouldn't people say the same thing about you? You're a show of a host of an entertainment
Have you
show.
ever heard me shill for a politician?
Yeah, every night when you come
I
here.
shill for policy. I'm a policy wonk. I don't get on stage saying, vote for this man, this woman. I say, here's what their policies do to American entrepreneurs.
But you-
good,
all
bad,
right,
and
all
ugly.
right,
But
okay,
Thank goodness I'm
But
here.
Kevin, I mean, you are a guest here a lot, and I've heard you strongly criticize Democratic politicians. Maybe you don't shill
No,
for one
their
politician.
policy.
No, I know. I've heard you make personal comments about Democratic politicians right here at this table. But to Anna's point, you have free speech rights just like everybody else does. I mean, are they not allowed? You're allowed to do it? Why are comedians not allowed?
Ana Navarro once again proves she adds nothing of value to these discussions. Every time she opens her mouth, it's either a cheap dig or an empty personal swipe, never a serious argument. And last night was no different. Her so-called attack on Kevin O'Leary was so absurd, so out of touch, that it practically collapsed under its own weight. Kevin's point couldn't have been clearer. He reminded everyone that Johnny Carson, one of the greatest late-night hosts in history, understood his job was simple: to entertain people, not to divide an entire country. That's the core of late-night television, or at least it used to be. But when Navaro tried to twist Kevin's role on Shark Tank into some bizarre comparison with Jimmy Kimmel, it told you everything about her argument. She had nothing real to say. They aren't even close to being in the same category. They aren't even in the same stratosphere. Kevin doesn't use his platform on Shark Tank to wage ideological wars or unload hatred on half the nation. His focus is on business, investment, and entertainment. Meanwhile, Jimmy Kimmel's monologues, they're not jokes. They drip with bitterness, hostility, and malice. And here's the thing about comedy. Audiences pick up on the intent. People can tell when humor comes from a place of fun and when it comes from a place of spite. That's why Carson endured for decades. He didn't need to humiliate half his audience to get a laugh. Personally, I believe humor works best when it feels lighthearted, even if it takes a jab at both sides. But when there's this underlying nastiness, it doesn't land. It falls flat, and viewers tune out. That's exactly why Kimmel struggles to connect, and why Navaro defending him looks so hollow. At the end of the day, she added nothing to the conversation, no argument, no logic, no substance, just noise. Now let's get back to what actually matters.
It no longer depends on the evidence. He's brought in people, he's required cases to be brought that have absolutely nothing behind them. He files lawsuits that have nothing behind them. He sued the New York Times last week. The complaint was so bad that the judge threw it out before the New York Times lawyers even had a chance to move for it. It works to an extent, but the problem with the legal system is it's slow. And he can make that Department of Justice move quickly. For example, what he did with Abrego Garcia, he put in a trumped-up case because he didn't like the fact that the guy came back. And he essentially got evidence in there to...
Kevin... Kevin, I have a couple of quibbles with you, but one, let me just read for you. This is a story on CNN.com just today. CEOs are growing alarmed, even if they are publicly staying quiet to avoid the wrath of the White House. Business leaders are quite alarmed in private about the state of democracy in the United States, according to Jeff Sonnenfeld at Yale. But secondly, I mean, look, it's pretty easy to get on Trump's good side. You say you're going to bring a bunch of cash into the United States. You flatter him. I mean, I think business leaders domestically and internationally see the game. They're like, okay, we'll play the game, but that's not to say that the game is the way that this democracy ought to operate. I don't know that Americans want a democracy that is pay to play.
Okay, wait a second.
Is what I'm saying.
Great CEOs, of which there are many in America, evidenced by the fact that 52 cents of every dollar on earth comes here to invest in those same companies, S&P 500, plus the millions of companies that are private, 5 to 500 employees. We are the essence of the largest economy on earth. That's what we have. What they really care about is their customers, their employees, and their investors. They know that the President of the United States, whoever it is, and the current Congress, and the senators, they're rotating. They rotate through every 4 to 8 years. What they care about is making sure their businesses, and this is why America has worked for 200 years, they keep their eye on the prize. Customers, employees, shareholders. It's the only economy that has survived every attack, including every administration. I don't care.
But I'm not disagreeing with. I'm not disagreeing with that. I agree with you that that's like the basic premise, right? But I also think that it's also very clear that these businesses are taking Trump as he operates, whether they like it or not. Whether they think it's democratic or not, and they're saying, okay, this is how he operates. He needs us to donate to this pet project or that pet project. He needs us to flatter him in this way or that way, and we're going to do it because that's good for our shareholders in the near term.
Reagan,
but I also
Clinton,
think that it could very well be
did the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, but it could very well be that those same companies are concerned about long term what this means for the United States.
What's long term in politics?
Well, long term is is a legal
4 years.
environment and a regulatory environment that is subject to the whims of one person rather than rules and regulations that everybody
But it's
plays
not.
by.
Well, let me
That's,
just say this.
that's
not
the
such a
issue.
Department of
It's one
Justice is
person.
going to
Not at
take
all.
years for them to get.
All right, let's break this down. Abby prefaced one of her questions to Kevin O'Leary by saying, Americans assume this was the government chilling speech referring to Jimmy Kimmel being suspended. No, Abby. No average American is thinking that. The only people buying into this are CNN viewers and the journalists spinning it into a drama. Brendan Carr made an offhand comment on a podcast. That's it. Not a federal action. Not Trump signing an order. Not the White House threatening anyone. CNN just ran with it like it was a government conspiracy. The truth is simple. Jimmy Kimmel has more money, platforms, and audience reach than almost anyone in America. His speech has never been suppressed. This frenzy is fake outrage designed to keep a dead story alive. Kevin O'Leary cut right through it. ABC can fire, suspend, or reinstate Kimmel whenever they want. It's business, not censorship. CNN took one stray comment and blew it into a government plot that never existed. Ana Navarro, as usual, added nothing to the conversation. Now I want to hear from you. Do you agree with Kevin O'Leary's analogy to Johnny Carson, that entertainers should entertain, lift people up, and avoid dragging comedy into partisan politics? And do you agree that CNN completely fabricated this story to smear Trump? Lastly, if you see the new hype feature on World Insight Hub, go ahead and try it out. Thanks for watching, and as always, put God first. I'll see you guys in the next video.